We are back. Isru Chag HaShavuos. Hope everyone had a good Yontif. This is a topic today that maybe was relevant for Shavuos, maybe in some places. Let's take a look. So you have the source sheets here. The topic is moving the Sefer Torah. I don't mean moving it like just going like this to this, moving it from one location to another location. Now, years ago, I heard that you shouldn't move a Sefer Torah from one place to another unless you read from it 3 times in the new location that you moved it to. Have you ever heard such a thing? I always heard such a thing, but I wondered, says who? Well, what's the source for that? So I asked someone at one point, and they said, it doesn't say anywhere in Shulchan Aruch such a thing. But it seems that there's such a minhag. So we're going to discuss that a little bit today. And we're going to discuss that a little bit today. So you have the source sheets, and I'm just taking out my fancy Shnayas I have over here.
Would be by an issue in a Shiva house.
Correct. A practical thing would be in a Shiva house. That's correct. Can you bring a Sefer Torah to a Shiva house?
You're not going to read it 3 times. You're not going to read on Shabbos, so it's not going to get to 3 times.
Right? That's right. Okay, let's take a look. So we have our source sheets here. We're going to start on the right side as a Mishnah from Masechta Yuma. I didn't quote all the Mishnah because I just didn't get it all in on the page, but I quoted what is relevant for our discussion. It's a Mishnah, Masechta Yuma, chapter 7, Mishnah 1. And the Mishnah says, so we are discussing what the Kohen Gadol needs to do on Yom Kippur. That is the general topic over here. And the Mishnah is discussing after the goat of Azazel, the Seir Azazel, reaches the wilderness, right? Once they banish it to the wilderness, the Kohen Gadol then is meant to read certain passages in the Torah. And that's what the Mishnah is talking about. So it says, the Kohen Gadol goes from the main courtyard, the main azar in the Beis Hamikdash, to the Ezras Nashim, to the women's courtyard, to read the Torah. If the big day boots, he wants to read from the Torah while he's still wearing his big day boots. That means his white linen garments. We know the Kohen Gadol wore, at least for part of the time, white clothing on Yom Kippur. So if he wants to do that, no problem. It's the least love and mishaloi. But if not, he doesn't want to wear those garments in particular, I don't know, for whatever reason, he can wear in his own white robe. In other words, that reading the Torah is not considered an avodah that he's doing in the Beis Hamikdash, so he could wear his personal clothing if he wants to. Fine. Now, he's going to read. What's he going to read from? Sefer Torah. Where's he standing? Ezras Nashim. Where does he get the Sefer Torah from? So the Mishnah continues. Now, the Sefer Torah was kept in a shul adjacent to the Azara. And the Mishnah then explains as follows. How do they get it from that location to where he's going to be reading it from? Chazan HaKnesses, the Chazan, doesn't mean the Chazan like the cantor in modern day language. It means like a shamash, basically, the attendant, the beadle, or whatever you would call it. Chazan HaKnesses, Neifel Sefer Torah. So the Chazan, aka the attendant, the beadle, or whatever you want to call him, would go take the Sefer Torah, but knows the L'Reish HaKnesses, and he would hand it to the head of the shul. He in turn, he in turn would hand it to the Sagan. The Sagan is the deputy Kohen Gadol, like the assistant Kohen Gadol. And he in turn, the Hasagan, and he in turn would hand it to the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol oimed, he would stand in order to receive the Sefer Torah. He would receive it. And then he would read from the Torah while standing. What would he read? So the Mishnah continues. It's not relevant to our discussion tonight. So for the sake of time and brevity, we won't read the continuation, but the Mishnah then goes on to delineate which precise passages would he read. That's the Mishnah. Good. It's okay so far? So he's reading the Ezras Nashim, but he needs a Sefer Torah. So what do? They go to the nearby shul, and one person takes it, hands it to the next person, he hands it to the next person, and he hands it to the Kohen Gadol, Shalom Al Yisrael. Good? Now, here's where it gets complicated, or not so complicated, but let's take a look in the Talmud Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi says as follows. This is Masechta Yuma in the Yerushalmi. And the Mishnah, as it's that is printed in my Yerushalmi, I didn't make a comparison. The Mishnah here, what's listed as the first Mishnah, which they actually call a halacha. Interesting, like we were discussing on, I think we mentioned on Shavuos at some point that the Mishnah really is a halacha. But in the Yerushalmi it says halacha aleph. It doesn't say Mishnah, it says halacha aleph. And the Mishnah includes what in my art scroll Mishnayos over here is actually the first two Mishnayos. Okay. In any event, the Gemara says as follows in Masechta Yuma Talmud Yerushalmi. B'chol asar, in every place, in every location that you discuss the idea of moving a Sefer Torah, at Omar holchin achar Torah. You say in every location, you always say, you follow the Torah. The Torah doesn't follow you. We don't adapt the Torah, so to speak, to wherever we want to bring it. You want the Torah, you go to the Torah. The Torah doesn't come to you. That's what the Yerushalmi says. But here in our Mishnah that we just read, where we have this whole process of bringing the Torah from one person to the next person to the next person, that kind of seems to be in contradiction to this principle that we say that we holchin achar haTorah, we go to the Torah, we don't bring the Torah to us. But here in our Mishnah, at Omer Molikin as Torah Etzlan, you're bringing the Torah to the people. So how does that make sense? How does that fit with the principle that we don't bring the Torah places? If you want the Torah, you go get it. More respectful. What do you think the Torah is? It's like your iPhone. You bring it with you somewhere. No, the Torah is the Torah. You want the Torah, you go to it. That's more coveted. It's more respectful. So that's the Yerushalmi's question. What's going on in this Mishnah? So the Gemara answers, Ella, rather, here it's okay to bring the Torah to the chazan and then to the head of the shul and to the Rosh Knesset and then to the skan of the Kohen Gadol. Why? Because here, Ella, ayadei shein bnei odom gedolim. These are great individuals, especially obviously the Kohen Gadol, but really all of them are great, distinguished individuals. Therefore, haTorah mis'ala bohem. The Torah is elevated by being brought to them. So rather than being viewed as a denigration of the Torah, by we just take the Torah wherever it needs to go. No, here the Torah is being not denigrated, but quite to the contrary, the Torah is being exalted and elevated by virtue of who it's being brought to. So it's okay to bring the Torah to them. It's okay so far? The Gemara, Yerushalmi asks, but 1 second, wait a minute. Taman over there, they're in Israel. Where's over there? In Bovel. In Bovel, question mark. There in Bovel, where they have somebody called the Reish Galusa. In English, they usually translate that as the exilarch. Reish Galusa, the head, the Rosh Hagolah, the head of the exile. The Reish Galusa, the exilarch, was a leader of the Jewish people. The position was hereditary. He didn't necessarily get the position because he was necessarily a distinguished individual, although he may have been. He didn't get the position because he was a Talmid Chacham, although he may have been. But it was really a hereditary position of leadership. And the Reish Galusa was a descendant of Beis David. So, family position. So, Frek the Gemara Taman over there in Bovel, Miyavli no Yoraisa, they bring the Yoraisa, the Torah, Gabe Reish Galusa, to the Reish Galusa, question mark, who is not necessarily a distinguished individual and is not necessarily a Torah scholar. So, you just told me that here in our Mishnah, it's okay to bring the Torah to the Sgan, the deputy Kohen Gadol, and to the Kohen Gadol because they were very distinguished individuals. So it's okay because it elevates the Torah, it doesn't denigrate the Torah. But in Bavel, they were willing to bring it to the Reish Galusa, who was not necessarily anybody remarkable.
The nepotism, baby.
A little bit of a nepotism situation. You hear the question? So the Gemara answers, Amar V'yosi bar Rabbi Boim, says as follows, Tamon, over there, meaning in Bavel. The reason why they bring it to the Reish Galusa, despite that he's not so distinguished, since he's the Zera, he's the offspring of David HaMelech. So we just do the custom, like as was accustomed to his ancestors, who were distinguished. They were the kings of Beis David. And the Korban Ha'edah, I didn't put it on the page, but the Korban Ha'edah, who's one of the commentaries on the page in the Yerushalmi, he says, "B'Bavel mevi'in Sefer Torah legabe Reish Galusa." In Bavel, they would bring the Sefer Torah to the Reish Galusa. Afal pi, even though delif omim einan chashuvim kol kach b'Torah of mitzvos, even though sometimes they were not so distinguished in their Torah mitzvos. So he explains, so the Korban Ha'edah explains, the Gemara Talmud there in Bavel gabe Reish Galusa, hoil ve'in mizarei shel David, since bottom line is he's a descendant of David HaMelech. Therefore, Oiselen Kiminag Avisayin, Kamalche Beis David. So no, they got lucky basically. They're grandfathered in. Literally grandfathered in. So since we used to bring the Sefer Torah to your grandfather, who was one of the Malchei Beis David, okay, lucky you. We'll bring the Sefer Torah to you too. So there is an element of it being distinguished in some way.
When did they bring the Sefer Torah to the king?
The king would read during Shas Hakel, during a Hakel year.
He had his own Sefer Torah. He took with him wherever he went.
That's true. That's true. I don't know. I don't know when else they brought it to him. I'm not sure. It's a good question. Simchas Torah.
Unless he didn't reach with his own Sefer Torah.
Okay, sorry, okay, that's the introduction to our topic tonight. That's the introduction to our discussion tonight. Now, let's take a look in the next source is the Mordechai. The Mordechai who says the following, the second source, or the third source on the page, really the end of the first chapter of Sefer Rosh Hashanah. We have here a copy of it. Mordechai was Mordechai ben Hillel. He lived in the 13th century in Germany, around 1250 to 1298. His father-in-law, his Sefer, was Rabbi Yechiel of Paris, was one of the great Tosafists. Now, Rabbi Yechiel of Paris, his most famous Talmud was Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg, Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg was the Rabbi Mufa, was the principal Rebbe of the Mordechai. Mordechai was married to a woman named Zelda. They had 5 kids, and they were all murdered in 1298 in the, I don't know how to pronounce it, the Rindfleisch massacres in Germany, which was a major massacre of Jewish people. I think, if I recall what I read quickly online, I think it was the first pogrom really in Germany since the First Crusades. In any event, if you read the introduction of the Beis Yosef to the Beis Yosef, his commentary on the Torah, he writes there how he derives the halacha and how he determines which poskim to follow and so forth, which are the Rishonim. So famously, there is the Rambam, the Rosh, and the Rif are the 3 pillars of that the Beis Yosef relies upon primarily. And he discusses if 2 of them agree, if one of the, which different positions and so forth. But in addition to that, he also mentions various other great poskim that he relies upon heavily. One of those is the Mordechai. Interesting, Mordechai was Ashkenazi, so basically Sephardi, but any event. He says as follows. This is his commentary on Rosh Hashanah. It's really psukim, it's really Piskei Halacha. Matzasi b'tshuva achas. I found in a tshuva. What kind of tshuva? A tshuva written by his Rebbe, the Meir Rothenburg. Matzasi b'tshuva achas. The b'nei odom hachavushim bebeis ha'asurim. People that are in prison, that are incarcerated in jail. Ein mavim etzem sefer Torah. You're not allowed to bring a Sefer Torah to them. Afilu b'Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim. Even Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Kedamrina b'Yerushalmi b'Perek Boloi. Then, as we have in Yerushalmi, there's a whole discussion about moving a Sefer Torah. It says, "B'chol asar at oimra holchin achet Torah That the Gemara asked that we just saw in the Yerushalmi that you say you go to the Torah, but Vahacha, the Gemara in Yerushalmi said here in the Mishnah in Yuma, Tema Moilichim Torah Etzloi. And the Gemara answers Ella that the reason why in Masechta Yuma we're allowed to bring the Torah to the Sagan and the Kohen Gadol, etc., is Aidei Bnei Adam Shem Bnei Adam Gedolim. They're great individuals, therefore a Torah is ala bohem. Then the Gemara asks the next question, right? But there in Bavel, question. We saw this in Yerushalmi before. What about the Reish Galusa? He's not so chashuv. So the Gemara answers over there also. Tamon there in Bavel David Hasham. Therefore, in an Ovdin, interesting parentheses. We're going to see that in a minute. We do like the minhag of their ancestors, so their grandfather did, so they get the Torah as well. But says the Maram Rothenberg, quoted by the Mordechai, you cannot bring it to someone in jail. Who would be in jail? Interestingly, Ashkach put the Maram Rothenberg himself was imprisoned. The famous story about ransoming captives. He didn't permit that he himself should be ransomed. He died in prison, and even he instructed that even his remains should not be ransomed. But I think 14 years or so after he passed away, some wealthy Jew did ransom the remains of the Maram Rothenberg. But in any event, presumably, if someone's in jail, it's because they committed a crime, and therefore they're not so chashuv in Torah mitzvahs, and you cannot bring a Sefer Torah to them, even a Shanim Kippur. That's the Mordechai. And the Beis Yosef on the tour in Siman Kuf Lamed Hey quotes this Mordechai, quotes of a Mordechai, Sefer Kamad Rosh Hashanah, quotes the Mordechai. Matzasi b'tshuva, and here it spells it out explicitly, Maram Rothenberg, and we see the whole thing over there. Now, if you skip to the last line of this Beis Yosef, it says V'loi kiminag aviseya. Inun ovdin v'loi kiminag aviseya. We do not like the minhag of their fathers, which doesn't really make sense. We just said the whole thing we're saying was we do like their ancestors. They our grandfather did, but here in the Beis Yosef it says. Inun ovdin v'loi kiminag aviseya, not like the minhag of their ancestors. It doesn't make sense. So the Shulchan Aruch I have here brings the Hagois, the notes on the bottom. If you look in Tez Zayin, Yerushalmi lefanenu, and our Yerushalmi hanusach inun ovdin loi with a vav kiminag aviseya. We do for him, not lay with an aleph, lay with a vav. We do for him like the minhag of his ancestors, again grandfathered in. Okay, so
Where's the parentheses? It should be with above.
Maybe that's why it's in parentheses in the Mordechai over here. I don't know, but based on the context over here, it seems to my understanding it only makes sense if it's lay with a vav. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. The whole vart is that we're doing, and that's the Yerushalmi.
You should do it, but otherwise you say you don't do it.
Otherwise, what's the answer? We don't do like the minhag of their ancestors. And how are you bringing in the Sefer Torah if it's not a Talmud Chacham? Seems to be again the only reason he's getting it. That's the yichus. The yichus is okay, fine. So we see starting from the Yerushalmi, and then we see the Mordechai brings the Shuvah. We saw, and then the Beis Yosef brings the Mordechai. So we're going through the Hishtalshlus of the Sefer of Halacha. Now let's go to the Shulchan Aruch Siman Kuf Lamed Hey in Orachaim, and the Mechaber, right, who is the Beis Yosef, same person, right? Paskins clearly Bnei Adam. People that are incarcerated, you cannot bring them a Sefer Torah, even Rosh Hashanah Kippur. Comes the Rama, V'hainu. What does that mean that we can't bring it to them? So the Rama qualifies it. Hainu, Dafke b'shas hakriya levad. You can't bring it if you're just showing up, putting it on the table, reading, and then you're done. That you cannot do. However, but if you prepare the Sefer Torah, we'll see in a moment what that means. If you prepare the Sefer Torah a day or two in advance, mutter, that you're allowed to do. We'll see in a minute what that means. Continues the Ramah, or concludes the Ramah. But if you want to bring it to someone who's chashuv, it's permissible. Even if you don't do it a day or two in advance, even if you just show up at the Sefer Torah, because they're chashuv. Let's go back to our Mishnah. And if the person is choshev, that that's an elevation for the Torah, not chas v'shalom, a denigration of the Torah. Let's take a look at the Mogen Avram commenting on this piece in Shulchan Aruch. The Ramah says Yoim or Yomaim, a day or two in advance. To bring in a day, what does that accomplish to bring in a day or two in advance? What does that mean? So says the Mogen Avram, Zel Loshen Maram Padva. This is the Loshen is quoting the Maram and Padva. The Maram and Padva was a Meir ben Yitzchak Katzenellenbogen. He was the first of the Katzenellenbogen family. He came from a place in Germany called Katzenellenbogen. He lived around 1482 to 1565. Interestingly, his mother was a descendant of Rashi, and he's the Maharam Padva, Padua or Padua, however you're supposed to pronounce it, in Italy. His son, who was named Shmuel Yehuda Katzenellenbogen, is known as the Maharam Shik. There's a family, the Shik family. So I don't know if they're descendants of his necessarily, or if they wanted to name themselves after him, but Shik, Maharam Shik. Maharam was his father. His father was Moreno Harab Meir, the Maharam Mipadva. So he was the Maharam Shik, because Shik is Shmuel Yehuda Katzenellenbogen. That's how he got the name. And also, the Maharam Padva was actually related to the Ramah, and he had many descendants, one of whom was the Divrei Chaim of Tzanz. Okay. Anyway, just I like this kind of interesting kind of put it in context a little bit. So the Magen Avram quotes the Maram and Padva as follow: that you prepare a place to put the Sefer Torah, or Teva, and Oroin or Teva al Yom Yomayim. Then Shari is quoting the Darkei Moshe, is quoting the Darkei Moshe's the Ramah. Is the Darkei Moshe's the Ramah's commentary on the Torah, from the earlier Sefer. Again, he was actually related to the Ramah. Not the Magen Avram, and the Maram and Padvas were related to the Ramah. So he says, what does it mean prepare a day or advance, a day or two? It means to prepare a place to put it. It has a home. So if you have some type of oron there, a box, a container or something, you're not just showing it, putting it on the table, you're putting it in some type of oron, that's permitted. Mashma, then Shari, says the Magen Avram. So implied from the Maram and Padva that the main thing is not the day or two in advance per se, but it's where you're putting it when you bring it to that new location. So for example, a Shiva house, they always bring in the Sefer Torah in a little box, in a smaller Kodesh. So this would seemingly be fitting with what the Magen Avram is saying over here. It's got a place. So you're not bringing it like open on its own, so to speak. It has a location. So there's a kvius to that. It's not as much of the, I guess it's not a denigration of the Sefer Torah that way.
If you're moving the Sefer Torah to a permanent place, that's different, right?
Yeah. So here we're talking about that you're not moving it permanently. You're moving it to a Shiva house, or you're moving it for Yont, if someone needs an extra Sefer Torah for Yont or something. Then we're saying, listen, just move it. Why are you moving the Sefer Torah around? It's not coveted. Well, what does the Sefer? It's a toy. You bring it with you wherever you go. It's not coveted. So we say, to bring a day or two in advance. So the Maram Padva says that means that there has to be in a way of kvius. There has to be a home for it. And then it's okay. Or if it's an Adam Choshev. There's a whole debate also, maybe you need both. Is the Adam Choshev himself, is that enough? Or does he also need it to be in a way of kvius, etc.? Okay, a whole discussion. Anyway, let's conclude with the Aruch HaShulchan on the same sim. The Aruch HaShulchan was Yechiel Michal Epstein, 1829 to 1908. A little bit of interesting of his life history, a little bit, is that he met the Netziv Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. He met him in Volozhin. He was Rosh Hashiva. And the Aruch HaShulchan married, at some point, a sister of the Netziv, whose name was Michla. That's not the interesting part. He married the Rosh Hashiva's sister. Okay, good. Married the Rosh Hashiva's sister. However, when the Netziv passed away, he wanted to be married. And he married the Aruch HaShulchan's daughter, who he was 30 years older than her. She apparently had been married once before to someone who, I guess, when they got married, her name was, I believe, Basia Miriam. She apparently was married once before, and I guess it was stipulated, or maybe not stipulated clearly, I'm not sure, that her husband would be a cuddle guy, would be dedicated to Torah. And I guess he didn't live up to that or something. So she divorced him. And then when the Netziv's wife passed away, he was older, wife passed away, and the opportunity to marry the Aruch HaShulchan's daughter came about, she was like, yeah, great, I want to marry a Talmud Chacham. So she married him, even though he was...
So he married his son-in-law's daughter? No, his
No.
brother-in-law's daughter.
Correct.
His brother-in-law's daughter. Okay.
Right. The Netziv, Aruch HaShulchan married the Netziv's sister.
Right.
The Netziv's wife passes away. I don't know how old she was, whatever, but he was, 60, 70 years old, however he was. And the Netziv is looking to remarry. Guess what? Aruch HaShulchan has a daughter named Bas Miriam, who just so happens is looking to marry a Talmud Chacham. And by the way, the Netziv definitely qualified as a Talmud Chacham, a big Chashiv Rosh Yeshiva, right? A huge guy. So she married him. I is 30 years older. No.
Isn't she also his sister's daughter?
Yeah. I'm just telling you just telling you the facts. Now,
Married his sister's daughter?
Yeah, it's fine.
they had some kids. One of whom was Meir Bar Ilan, as in who Bar Ilan University was named after. Meir Berlin, but changed his name at some point to Meir Bar Ilan. That's a little bit about the Aruch HaShulchan, maybe a little bit more than you wanted to know. But also the Aruch HaShulchan had a famous son, it had a number of kids also, a famous son who wrote the Chumash Torah Tamima. If maybe you've seen the Chumash Torah Tamima, it said that the Rebbe used the Chumash Torah Tamima to, I don't know if to learn Chumash and Rashi out of, but to follow along Chris Torah, I believe. I heard from Yisrael Gordon that the Rebbe used the Chumash Torah Tamima, as it's known for being very meduyak in terms of the diktuk and the separation of the psukim. Sometimes, like, see, for example, not the psukim, but the aliyah. Sometimes you see that depending which chumash you look in, the aliyah ends in a different place. So, to my understanding,
I think this week's parsha has that.
and also it does have that, right, Shishi?
That's my first aliyah. If I'm not mistaken.
Maybe. I think also maybe Shishi.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
it's fine.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not either. And there's a few other places. Where the aliyah is in a different place. And it's, my understanding is that in Chabad we follow the Torah Tamima. Interestingly, though, even though the Torah Tamima and the Aruch HaShulchan were not exactly Chassidim, definitely from another school, more of a Litvish school. Although the Aruch HaShulchan's son, the Torah Tamima, wrote a Sefer called I don't remember what it's called. In any event, in that Sefer, it tells stories about his father, the great Aruch HaShulchan. And one of the things he writes there, which I've heard is disputed. Some say it never happened, and some say it did happen. But he says that he went to visit the Tzemach Tzedek, that his father, the Aruch HaShulchan, went to visit the Tzemach Tzedek, third Rebbe of Lubavitch, and that Tzemach Tzedek gave him smicha. But I've also heard that it's completely not true, and that his son made it up as a way of, in a sense, ingratiating his father. Oh, see, my father's accepted by the Chassidim. That Tzemach Tzedek gave him smicha, because there was a whole. Why aren't the Chassidim following the Piskei Dinim of the Aruch HaShulchan, following the Alter Rebbe, following the Shulchan Aruch Harav? Why aren't you following my father's Sefer, the Aruch HaShulchan, a very, very chashuv Sefer? Okay. In any event, and because the Aruch HaShulchan was such a big guy, many people came to him for something they wanted to get smicha from him. It's like not a regular smicha. This is like a smicha from the Aruch HaShulchan. If you can get that, like, you're doing pretty well. So he gives smicha to many people, some of whom, just to mention a few, are Shlomo Yosef Zevin, who was Lubavitcher, the editor of the Encyclopedia Talmudis, and the writer of many other Sfarim as well. Issa Zalman Meltzer, and Avram Yitzchak Cook as well, who gave smicha to them. Anyway, enough of the biographical information. Let's take a look what the Aruch HaShulchan says over here. It's in Kuf Lamed Hey. V'yaminhag l'daktek sheyikiru bo gimel pa'omim. That when you're going to move a Sefer Torah, says the Aruch HaShulchan, the minhag is to read it 3 times. Why? That's called a kvius, which seemingly is similar to the idea that the Maram Epad mentioned in the Magen Avram, that you put it in a box, you put it in a some type of oran, so it has a location, it has a kvius in the new location. So it says the Aruch HaShulchan, read it 3 times. I'm fairly certain this is the source for the idea that you're supposed to read a Sefer Torah 3 times. So therefore, if you read it 3 times in the new location, even though as you meant, you're going to bring it back, because if it's moving there forever, no problem. But if you're just moving it temporarily, read it 3 times. So a Monday, a Thursday, and a Shabbos, or whatever it would be, and then that's called kvius, and that's not a denigration to the Sefer Torah. Aval pochlis migimu po'omim til talua lotzedich arai v'yesh bizoyin af meviu mikodim. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, if you read from it less than 3 times, that's a little bit not so respectful for the Sefer Torah, and I guess therefore you shouldn't do it. That's it.
Can you repeat that all?
Sure.
I got the tape.
Okay, questions, comments? So we start with the Mishnah about moving a Sefer Torah. Then we had the Talmud Yerushalmi. I think is that the first time we brought a Yerushalmi before? I don't remember. In our shiurim here, I don't remember. It could be. We had a Yerushalmi that asked a question of how you're allowed to move the Sefer Torah around, and the Yerushalmi concluded, because you're moving it to someone who's chashuv. So that serves as the foundation for the halacha we're discussing now. Then we had the Mordechai, who says there's a tshuva from my Rebbe, the Rameh Rothenberg, a tshuva from my Rebbe that you shouldn't take a Sefer Torah to people in prison. Not allowed to do that. And the Beis Yosef brought it. And then we had the actual halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. Shouldn't bring a Sefer Torah to people in prison. The Ramah qualifies it. That's only if you bring it at that moment. If it doesn't have a special designated location for it. Right, so that would be a heter to put it in a designated location. And then Mogen Avram brings the Maram Padua, how you're supposed to pronounce it exactly, it's Italian, that prepare a designated place for it, and that's okay. Finally, the Aruch HaShulchan, that you can read from it 3 times.
Is that in addition to having a place for it, or?
That's a good question. I think it's not in addition. It's either or.
Okay, either you have a home for it, or you're gonna
Read from it 3 times. And I guess presumably if you have both would be better, I guess.
So I would answer the Shiva house, because you have a home for it,
Right,
even though you don't read it 3 times.
right. Right. Okay, questions, comments? Good. All right. Let's move along.
Is there gonna be an issue bringing it upstairs?
That's also a question. Also a question.
Mm.
That's for another week. Can you move it within the same shul, move it around? Also a question.
Like a Sharpadu, sometimes they have to move it from downstairs.
Many shuls do it.
Yeah.
Many shuls do it. They bring
Yeah.
a Sefer Torah in one location within the shul, from the small base medrash to
Right.
the larger base medrash.
Right.
But it's all discussed. And Shulchan Aruch discusses these things like we saw just now. So maybe that's for another time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's return to this mimer. We're on page A. In this 1929 mimer delivered by the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe of Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson in 1929, Shmini Atzeres, when he was not yet living in the United States, he was visiting, and he was in New York when he delivered this mimer. And he seemed to be speaking, I guess, it seems a little bit passionate in this mimer. He seemed to be speaking to the people, speaking to the times, speaking to stuff that was the people were involved in. That's what it seems to me. I mean, I guess that I was always speaking to the people, always speaking to what needs to be spoken to. And I believe we are on the bottom, at the paragraph on the bottom of page A. And we were discussing that there are some people that love doing favors for other people. They love helping other people. They love doing chesed, love all sorts of opportunities to help. And Baruch Hashem, people that are good-natured and very chesed-oriented people. Many people like this, Baruch Hashem. But sometimes they make you suffer for your chesed, for the chesed they do for you. They make you pay the price. Right? But they're going to remind you. Remember how I hooked you up? Remember how they're going to remind you and remind you and remind you. You're not going to get this chesed for free. I did you a favor the other day, but I'm going to remind you that I did you a favor. They're not going to let you get away with it for free, so to speak. Some people like that. So who says anybody has to know? Who says when you do a favor for someone that you have to advertise it? You don't have to take out an ad, send out an email to all your friends, broadcast it on your WhatsApp status, post it on Facebook. Nobody looks at Facebook anymore, I don't think.
Put a
Post
plaque.
it, put a plaque. I did a favor for Avi. You don't have to take a plaque.
He puts on Facebook, he's being humble. No one's looking.
Okay. והנה, אחרי הטוב הזה, צריך אדם להיות נמשל. אחרי הטוב הזה, צריך אדם להיות נמשל. Person has to be drawn to do good. But again, to do good without the cheshbon that I'm going to make you pay for the good that I did for you. A person should be totally focused on helping other people, on doing good. In fact, I should get a gishmak. I should enjoy doing a favor for another person. Because really, that's commensurate with who I am. I'm a good person. And I should therefore act upon that. I should do good for other people and I should enjoy it. So if I'm going to live in this way, in an elevated manner, if I'm going to live a life of chesed, which is really who I am, then I'm actually fulfilling my tachlis. I'm actually living a life that I'm meant to live. As opposed to as opposed to if I allow myself to be just pulled after gashmius, material life. In such an instance, the page, that in such an instance, if my whole life is dedicated to one material pleasure after another, not only am I not fulfilling my purpose of life, because come on, an animal does that too, right? But not only am I not fulfilling my purpose, but I'm actually schlepping myself down. Like we're speaking before, you move the Sefer Torah, it's like a denigration of the Sefer Torah. That's not okay, right? But I should denigrate myself, that is okay? It's not okay either. Why should I denigrate myself, pull myself down to be like a behemoth, to be my whole life is about gashmius. Okay, we're physical people, I get that. We enjoy physical pleasures, I get that. But that's my life? Don't denigrate yourself. We shouldn't denigrate ourselves. And I've now lowered myself to the level of an animal, but really worse. Because an animal, what do you expect from him? But for me, maybe something greater should be expected. So if I allow myself to be schlepped down, to act like an animal, I'm worse than the animal. Two ways. Anything that I connect myself to, I become a little bit like that thing. As is known, the Mayas of the Baal Shem Tov, we're just coming from Shavuos, the Yortzeit of the Baal Shem Tov. So Hashgacha Pratis, we have now a Mayas of the Baal Shem Tov. He once pointed out on Shabbos, a Yid was sitting there dressed in his regal bekeshe, his shiny, beautiful Shabbos clothing. So see that guy? Utmunose ketabni shor. The guy's face was mamish the face of a behemoth, the face of an ox. Dressed in his finest Shabbos regalia. Wurde Fischer ochel basar shor. Und hat stark gewalt Fleisch. Because he ate meat. The problem wasn't that he ate meat. That wasn't the problem. Meat's kosher. As long as kosher meat, you say bracha, no problem. That wasn't the problem. Wasn't that he ate the meat. It was that hat stark gewalt Fleisch. He really wanted it. That was the issue. He was focused more on the meat than on the bracha for the meat, than on the mitzvah of Einik Shabbos. He just want, that's a geshmak, a piece of flesh. That I want. The nicest shore. Look at that. It's very strong words. So therefore, by bonding with that meat, his rotzon, his will bonded, connected to the meat. The nicest shore. He became an ox. So the Baal Shem Tov pointed this person out. See that guy? And they said, wow, I see an ox. Even though the Friedrich says parenthetically, by the way, the Shabbos clothing didn't change. That was still beautiful and pristine. His outer garments, his exterior remained the same. But he mamish was an ox. So in Ken Kasher ha'adam mekasher nafshe v'ritzoyde b'doymim or b'tzameach or b'chaylis anig mehem. So we see from this example, this Maisa the Baal Shem Tov, that when a person connects their will and they yearn and they yearn to connect to inanimate objects or plants or animals, etc., just for the pure sake of pleasure, becomes just like them. So when this individual ate the meat, that was his tachlis. Tachlis was, I'm eating that meat. That meat looks so good. I'm eating that. So he became meat. He became flesh. That's what he was. But even worse. But even worse than the animal. Worse than the ox. Because now he's receiving from the ox. He's allowing the ox to tell him how to live. He's allowing the ox to dictate what his life is all about. And the person is now descended from his level of humanity. He's descended to the level of either a plant or a rock or an animal. Period. So it's terrible you read them. Why should we the Sefer Torah can't be denigrated? I shouldn't denigrate myself either. That's number one. Number two, that base. The mitzvah my loss in malas and medaber had a shifluso will be yoser, based on how lofty a human being truly is. So when I go low, the lowliness is even. It's more gefer. It's more painful, if you will. It's more of a tragedy. The lowness is even worse. That when the person allows himself to be drawn after lowly matters like the meat and so forth. And now that's my gishmak. Not in doing a favor, not in doing avos yisrael for another person, not in learning Torah, not in davening. No, but my gishmak is in eating that piece of meat. He's actually worse than the animal. The behemoth has no das. The behemoth doesn't think per se. The behemoth knows about lofty spiritual matters. He knows about Torah. He knows about mitzvahs. He knows what it means to do a favor for another person. He doesn't know. So what do you blame him for not acting in a lofty way? He's not a lofty creature. It's just an animal. So he acts like an animal. He's an animal. What did you expect? Of course he acts that way. It's like sometimes a person gets upset at their young child. How come you did that? But it's in a sense like, hello, the kid's 2 years old. They're two. What do you expect from them? So we have to know, what are the standards? What are the expectations? Parents can't get upset. I mean, they can, but shouldn't get upset at a 2-year-old who, pardon me, makes in his pants. Like, is 2. I don't know exactly the age of toilet training. I don't remember exactly, but whatever. You get the point. That's the standard. So what do you expect? But if you're 50 years old, come on, what are you doing? How are you acting like that? So same thing with the behemoth. It's one thing if a behemoth acts like a behemoth, but it's something else if I act like a behemoth. The behemoth doesn't even know that there's something elevated, that there's something more to life, that there's spiritual ideas, but we know. We have intellect. We have knowledge and awareness. So if I act like a behemoth, I'm worse than the behemoth because I know that there's something more. So therefore, when I allow the Yetzer Hara to lead me astray, to follow after that piece of meat, it's a shtus neure. It's gefährlich. It's terrible. That this, I'm being drawn away, led away from the path of truth. I'm just being blinded. I'm blinded. The blind person can't see where he's going. So he bumps into the wall. Okay, you couldn't see. So that's what can happen to us. We could chas v'shalom when we allow ourselves to follow the Yetzer Hara, to act like a behemoth. Again, you want to act like a behemoth? Join the club, you're normal. But a little bit of self-restraint, a little bit of respect for ourselves. We don't want to allow ourselves to be blinded. The person, before they realize it, their whole life is about another piece of meat. And I don't even see it. I don't even see that it's an issue. How does that happen? It's just one step at a time. Now, his heart says to you, you know what's good in life? That shtickle flesh is what's good. You get another piece of it. That's what geschmack, that's what life's all about. Imagine living such a life. Says the Friedrich. This is, you got to take it to heart. Is this really what's good for me? Not even what's good for me. Is this my good? Is this my good? This is what my life is for? Is this commensurate with my neshama? Is this commensurate with the gift that God gave me, which is known as my neshama? Is this why God created me? To eat a piece of meat? You're going to tell me it's a taiva, it looks geschmack, it looks good? Okay? The very fact, like the Torah says, story of Adam and Chava, looks geschmack, it looks beautiful. Oh, it looks good, get away from it. That's your first sign to stay away. First sign to stay away is when it looks so good. It looks so delicious. Stay away. It's your first sign. Right. Get away. It looks good, get away. You're good. What I want to do, what guides me, what directs me, what inspires me, should be in yonim ruchnim v'nailim, spiritual, lofty, elevated manner. Those are truly good. But frat basic Torah, especially to learn. Hashem, we come together tonight. We learn some Shulchan Aruch. We learn about Shtickle Yerushalmi. That's good. That's emes. But frat basic Torah shezot teiv v'taim gamiti v'zeh mashim kavanas briyosei. That fulfills my purpose of creation. One time the Chassidim were sitting around, having a little fabrengen, a little bit of mashke, a nigin, a dvar Torah. It was very geschmack, it was very nice. A few crackers, a piece of herring. All of a sudden, someone came in the door holding a plate of meat. It was, I think it was lung, which I guess was a delicacy. And it was spiced and it was hot and it smelled so good. And so Chassidim noticed, he brings it over. Guys, bring it to the table. So put it on the table. I'm going to cut it into a piece and enjoy, say a bracha and enjoy it. Geschmack. Shmuel Mukis, a famous chassid, the Alter Rebbe, was there. And he's watching it. We're looking at everybody, observing everybody. They're mamish, wide-eyed, a long, givaldik. Oh, they were so excited. He gets up out of his seat, runs over, in one movement, grabs the plate of meat out of the hand of the guy carrying it, and in one fell swoop, boom, deposits it in the trash. The trash was not like a clean, bad garbage bag. Ruined. A perfectly good piece of meat. They look at him. Shmuel, what are you doing? What are you doing? You. Before they have a chance to say anything, someone comes running in. It's the shochet or the boidik. I don't remember. It says, "Don't eat it. I checked it. There was I found a problem in the animal. I checked the lung. Or it was a lung. It was another lung. I don't know.
The second one is 2 lungs.
Second lung, 2 lungs. Maybe that's how God created us with 2 lungs. I checked. Is a problem? It's not kosher. They turned to Shmuel. 1 second. What kind of games are you playing with us? You could have just told us it's not kosher. If you knew it's not kosher, we would never eat a piece of meat that's not kosher. You could have just told us it's not kosher. Just to throw in the garbage up and make a whole song and dance and playing games with us. So Shmuel Munka says, well, you think I knew it wasn't kosher? I didn't know it wasn't kosher. Then why'd you throw it out? Because all I knew is I saw the fire in your eyes. I saw the passion, the taiva that arose within you when he brought the meat in. There got to be something wrong with that piece of meat. That's all I knew. So that's what he says here. The very fact that it looks so good, get away. Get away from it.
That story, don't do that at home.
Don't try that at home. Exactly. Exactly. Now, that story was a story about the piece of meat that turned out to be not kosher. But that's not even really what we're talking about here. As the Friedrich continues, I'm talking about permissible kosher food. If it looks enticing, it looks good, stay away. Be very careful. I'm talking about permissible things. I'm talking about you eating a kosher piece of meat. It's permissible. You're going to say a bracha, obviously. It's just that the way you're eating it, like the mice of the Baal Shem Tov, the guy is an ox wearing Shabbos clothing. It's just that the way you eat it, the way you engage in it, you may become lower than the animal itself. That's up to now what I've been speaking about. Permissible taivas. But if we take it to the next step, it doesn't stop at taivas heter. If a person allows themselves to be an ox, allows themselves to eat that permissible food, to engage in the permissible taiva just for the taiva, it leads to forbidden things as well. How so? Because the Yetzer Hara sees that he had a little bit of success. Hey, I got that guy to eat that piece of meat. He rushed through his bracha to eat it, and he downed it with a passion, as if it was the only thing that mattered in the world. So the Yetzer Hara senses, oh, I got him in that. I had a little bit of success. I wonder what other areas I could be successful with this guy. Maybe I should try something osser. That's what the Yetzer Hara says. Same, and he takes the same exact approach, by the way, because hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Yetzer Hara sees my first approach was to show him how shiny it was, glittery, and it smelled delicious, and so on and so forth. So he does the same thing. It shows you how enjoyable it is, how pleasurable it is. And he awakens within the person their taiva until they simply cannot control it. And God forbid, the person stumbles, God forbid, and does an actual avera, chas v'sholom. Same strategy. Same strategy, the Yetzer Hara. And again, the strategy, the strategy of the Yetzer Hara is Shabbos, Kufay on the base, it says in Gemara Shabbos, this is the craft of the Yetzer Hara. This is the way he works. Today he says, do such and such. A small thing. No big deal. Next day he says, oh, okay, now do this. Also, not such a big deal. But getting progressively along until eventually now go worship an idol. Step by step. He doesn't jump, doesn't tell you to worship an idol, because Yetzer Hara knows if I tell this guy to worship an idol, he's going to be like, get out of here. I would never worship an idol. Who do you think I am? I'm a Yid. You know who I am? I wouldn't worship an idol. The Yetzer Hara is smarter than that. It says, okay, I won't do it. By Yetzer Hara, he's an expert. He's an expert at this craft, at this work. But in Yiddish, the Yetzer Hara sometimes in the Maimarim and places is called der Klugenker. the crafty. It's not smart, it's more than smart, it's crafty. He knows exactly how to talk to you. He's an expert. He's a mumche at his job. The first he entices you to give in to a permissible taifa. Because it's easier to get you to do that. Because you said it, after all, it has excellent hechsher on it. So what's the big deal? But when a person indulges themselves just for the sake of the indulgement itself, that makes the person more misav, they become more coarse. Not course, coarse, coarse, grub. Und das ist der Tchilas Meloch von Yetzer Hara. This is the beginning. This is how the Yetzer Hara starts his job. Was vergräbt der Menschen durch Taivas hätte. He aims to make the person all a little bit less sensitive to spirituality, a little bit more coarse. Das heißt, this means, as levad, so is was macht im greisen Mag, mi mag das und mi mag das. Und gefindt ihm, ois kametel. Finds all sorts of what about this, maybe you could do that, maybe, all sorts of roundabout things, and this is okay, it's okay to eat that piece, it's okay to do this, okay to do that. Goed dem der ganze Tachlis von der Yetzer Hara is to vergräben the mention. First again, he strives to entice you to give in to your taivas in a permissible manner. But then his whole purpose is to make you more coarse, make you less sensitive. As jede Zach, was tut, soll wellen, nor den Geschmack in der Zach. His whole goal is that everything you do, Sahara wants, that you should just do it because it's Geschmack for you. Just because you enjoy it. We're talking about pleasures, just for the sake of the Geschmack. Und die Taife von dem, just for the Taife. Und als vergräbt ihn, is yemot hine retzoynish on Bahamis misgadlu misrabim literacy b'chol dover. And the more coarse the person becomes, the more accustomed they become to digging into the sushi platter or whatever. Sushi's not even a type anymore. It was a type when it first came out. Now sushi's everywhere. Nobody even cares about it. It's like sometimes you go to whatever chasana or whatever. There's a line to get a piece of meat, and it's almost like, really? I'm not hungry. What is this, communist Russia? I have to wait in line for food? It's almost like, what am I doing? Waiting in line for a piece of pastrami. And if you don't have it, something's going to happen to you? What's going to happen? So this is what the Yitzhar tries to do. He tries to get you to wait in line for the pastrami because you know how good it's going to be. It's going to be hot. And they have 3 types of mustard to go with it. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be so great. But as he gets us more and more accustomed to that, the taiva gets stronger and stronger. We have different types of animal souls that can get progressively stronger. Some people, their animal soul is more like a sheep, not such a strong animal. Still an animal though. But the person, some things they love, they have taivas for, other things they don't. And furthermore, some people, even the things that they have taivas for, no, it's not such a strong type. Meaning, okay, if I don't get it, I'll live. Others, their animal soul is full blast ahead, totally powerful. That any taiva possible, I have to go get it. It's almost like you go into the line and you're waiting. By the way, what's at the end of the line? You don't know what it is. It's going to be good. It's going to be good taiva. It's going to be good. I'm going to wait in line. What is it, by the way? Who cares? If it's a taiva, I'm there. I'm game. I'm down. Everything else wants everything. Every type imaginable, I want it. That type would take if God was and some people, the type is mamish burning fire. That should mamali type is leave a gamma davar ha'asur chatz v'sholom. It won't stop, God forbid, until eventually they're willing to even cave in, God forbid, to a davar ha'asr chas v'shalom. And we're a little bit in the middle of the Indian, but we have to pause since it's 9 o'clock. But we'll hopefully try to wrap it up next time, God willing. And then I don't know what we'll continue. Not sure what we're going to do after this, but thanks for coming. There will be, God willing, a Tanya Shir Shabbos afternoons in Mitzvah Hashem open for men and women, 5 p.m., starting this very Shabbos, the Shabbos after Shavuos. So if you know any men, if you know any women that would like to join, please tell them they're invited, 5 p.m. on Shabbos. And Adka, thank you for coming.